What's going on, y'all? It's here mid-September, and I'm kind of been thinking about what's the top 5 baits to be throwing when those bass go shallow. This isn't specific to this time of year. It could be used year-round. Uh, Oftentimes when you see that the water levels drop or the water temperature drop, or even when that water temp's warm but the bass are going to be hiding in some grass, those bass will be shallow. And when I say shallow, I'm talking about 5 foot or less. But this time of year, when lakes are starting to drop and the water temp drop, I'm starting to see it a lot more. So these are going to be the top kind of 5 baits I'm throwing, or I guess you could say categories of baits I'm throwing. And the shallow bite, if you throw the right things, you can catch a lot of fish. And to begin off with, we're going to start off with a frog, or just topwater in general, but shallow water bites, a frog's going to be one of the best bites, whether that's a traditional frog, a popping frog, or something like this, where it's almost like a whopper plopper. Frogs are going to be great. They're almost going to be, you can throw them in 6 inches of water all the way to 5 feet. You can throw them in deeper if you really wanted. They're going to draw fish from a distance in shallow water, especially the whopper plopper frog and the popping frog. But they can be used in cover. Oftentimes when you're fishing shallow, you're going to be fishing laydowns, grass, etc. There's going to be a bunch of cover in that shallow water. That's oftentimes going to be why they're there. I'm oftentimes going to go for a white bottom on the frogs, or yellow. This one here is the whopper plopper frog. It's got yellow and white. I like that because oftentimes when the bass are that shallow, they're going to be feeding. But that's option number 1, and it's going to be what I'm throwing when the fish get shallow, is a frog. All right, moving on from there. Even when the water temps get cold, you can't shy away from slow moving. So all these tactics are going to be good for year-round, even in the summer when the bass are shallow. But you can't ever shy away from this. But a wacky rig is going to be my second option to go with. I personally enjoy the Slinko. This one floats. So when I'm fishing the shallower water, this bait here is either going to float on the surface, or I'll put a nail weight in it and it'll just flow real slowly. So it gives that bait more time to fall when I'm fishing 5 foot or under, and it can oftentimes trigger bites. I'm going to fish these baits very slowly in that 5 foot or under, whether that's fall, winter, spring, or even summertime bass when they're in that shallow water. Moving on from there, it's going to be a chatterbait. I love throwing chatterbaits in 5 foot or under, no matter the time of year. I switch up colors. Currently, mid-September, I am throwing this red color. Bluegill patterns and shad patterns usually succeed for me. During the summertime, I might be throwing like a black and blue. But as of right now, just a standard chatterbait. You don't have to go special with a jackhammer. The Evo is a good option because oftentimes if you're fishing shallow water, that bait's going to be running into rock, wood, you name it. But when the chatterbait Evo, which has a tungsten head, bumps into something, it's going to create a different sound, and that different sound's oftentimes going to arguably trigger more bites and can get you bigger fish in the boat. But I fish with just the standard $5-6 chatterbait, and I catch plenty of fish on them and plenty of big fish. That's option number 2. Moving on from there, when the fish are shallow, like I said earlier, they're mainly going to be feeding up on whether that's shad or bluegills, and they're not always going to be moving around. Sometimes they're just roaming, but sometimes they're camped out. But no matter the case, I'm usually going to be throwing a swim bait. That brings us to the next bait, and that's just going to be these both are jointed swim baits. This one here is actually advertised as a micro glide bait, but I found out these smaller glide baits, whether it's a speed glide or something like this Guggen Squad one here, they work almost better if you just slow reel them. They'll have a wide action, and they'll oftentimes trigger you some fish. So I use the micro glide baits more as a swim bait. And then here, my personal favorite is gonna be a Mike Buka Catch Co. This is the bullgill. I love the baby bull shad. Both are great, fantastic baits. But when those bass are 5 foot or under, they're they're going to be looking for bait, and these can just be fantastic search baits. I can fish these in 5 foot. I can fish them in 6 inches of water, no matter what that depth may be. But both of these are going to be fantastic options. Uh, I got bluegill patterns, shad patterns for whatever those bass may be feeding on when they're up shallow, because they're oftentimes going to be looking for bait. All right, that brings us to our next bait option. When these bass are 5 foot or under, oftentimes they're going to be looking up in the water column. So they might be sitting down towards the bottom, no matter if they're 5 foot or 6 inches, but they're going to be looking up in the water column, up at the surface, not necessarily expecting bait, but that's just the direction they're going to be looking. So one of the baits I'm going to be throwing is just going to be a wake bait. This one's a 6-inch, just Bass Pro Shops brand. I did lose the tail. Losing the tail was sacrificial to catching a fish, but that should just prove that wake baits and 5 foot or under catch fish. It's gonna be on top of the surface, just creating a slow moving weight. I usually move these baits real slow. It's gonna create this real wide action, and that wide action is gonna pull fish from 5 foot. It's gonna pull fish. You can actually fish them deeper, but in this video alone, I'm talking about fishing shallow, and wake baits are going to be one of my favorite. Now, if it's quite windy and there's chop on the water, a wake bait might not be the best option, but I usually have it tied on if I know I'm going to be fishing shallow, because oftentimes when you're fishing shallow, that could be in a protected cove. So even if it is a windy day, you might be protected and the water be flat enough where you can throw a nice wake bait and trigger yourself some good bites. This is quite a big one. There are bigger ones out there, but I also throw little ones that are about this big, about like 2 or 3 inches. Like they're almost the same exact size as a square bill, just they stay on top like a wake bait. But that's key for when the bass are going to be looking up in the water column, and when the bass are that shallow, that's going to be oftentimes what they're looking at. But that's really my top 5 baits for when I'm fishing shallow, and shallow is 5 foot under, like I've said. But I will provide an honorable mention, and that honorable mention is just going to be the good old-fashioned spinner bait. This one is a War Eagle. I've mentioned it in videos in the past. I only throw purely War Eagles. Not saying that nobody else makes good spinner baits, but War Eagles happen to be my favorite. This one here's got 2 Colorado blades. These Colorado blades are going to create a louder thump. But this is actually what I've been catching them on recently. It's not in my top 5 because usually I throw these other ones, but it's been quite windy, so I've been going with the spinner bait. But don't shy away from those others. They're still my top 5 baits. But a spinner bait and 5 foot under is going to be one of the best search baits. So if you're having trouble finding bass or understanding what they're going to bite, if you tie on a spinner bait, just make cast after cast. Eventually you're going to find one, and you're going to key in on those bass, and then you can start throwing these other baits and figure out what they're going to want that day or that week. But it's just a spinner bait. So all in all, those 5 baits or categories, as I should say, plus the honorable mention of a spinner bait, is going to be on my boat when I understand I'm going to be fishing 5 foot or under, whether that's fall, winter, spring, or summer. All times of year, these baits will be on my boat when I'm fishing shallow water, and I'm going to get bites in the shallow water throwing these baits alone. Sometimes you can venture out. These are my top 5 or 6 as of right now. And as time goes on and as you fish, you will learn. Sometimes your tactics and favorite baits will change. But as of now, these are going to be the baits I'm throwing in shallow water. And to be noted, I am in the South. I'm in Georgia, so I'm fishing kind of dirty reservoirs with visibility no more than 5 foot. All my lakes are real shallow as well. The deepest water I have in a lake I fish is about 40 foot, but most of the lakes I'm fishing will be shallow, and I have minimal grass in all the lakes I fish. That's something to be noted. But if you're somewhere up north where you got some deeper natural lakes, or you got more grass in the lakes, uh, these baits will still be a fantastic option. Now, in those scenarios, I might shy away from a treble hook swim bait like this and throw a weedless, maybe perhaps underspin. That can give you both the presentation of a spinner bait and a swim bait. But uh, like I said, I just went over my top 5 or 6 that I throw in minimal grass and minimum clarity in shallow lakes in the south. But hopefully y'all learned something. Maybe this can help y'all go out there and catch some nice bass. But if you liked what you watched, please like and subscribe. Anything you want to see upcoming, please leave in the comments, or any questions as well. But thanks for watching, and I'll catch y'all next time.